Welcome back to the channel, people. Thanks again for coming along to XPENG EV. Now, this here, I was one of the first to put this kind of thing on YouTube and advocate for cheaper EVs. And before I go any further, I'm afraid to say my American subscribers and watchers, because of this man here and the guy who has joined him in control of the USA now, Mr. Trump, as we all know, you ain't going to get any EVs at all from China. So this actual post is not really for you, but please carry on watching. All about the tariffs, folks. If you put 100% tariffs on, it makes them completely outpriced. The diabolical duo has completely ruined it for my American watchers and subscribers. But we'll move on. Now, I say completely ruined it. Maybe not, because already there is a post on my channel which explains that you will get China EVs, but assembled in the USA. We'll talk about that later. Now, here you see Zeekr production lines in China, making and producing cheap, so-called cheap China EVs. Well, where the hell are they? 3 years ago, when I first started taking a note of China and cheaper EVs, everyone was saying that we were going to be flooded by them, and all the complete manufacturing base in Europe would be gone by now because of cheap EVs from China. Well, where the hell are they?
While China has been beefing up its own car companies, it's also been buying up others. Volvo and MG are now Chinese-owned.
Now, cheap Chinese cars are another thing, and this is what made me put this video and post together, to basically try and find out where all the cheap ones have gone. Now, definitely all in the media and in the press, they were saying that the Chinese car companies will obliterate everything else in the Western world when it comes to car manufacturing, and the legacy automakers will be finished and doomed. Well, you know, it's 3 years down the road, and yes, there's been a few BYD and MG and everything else come into the UK, for example. But again, the price of a BYD Seal is more than the price of a Tesla Model 3. I don't get it. I cannot understand that. I was kind of told, and I think we were all in the same boat, that cheap Chinese cars were going to be around the £15,000 on the road in the UK with 200 miles of range, etc, etc. Now, when I say cheap Chinese cars, I'm talking electric vehicles here. I am not talking the Chinese cars with petrols or diesels in them, or even the hybrids. Not interested. So where are these cheap ones? And where? Show me. Where's the cheap EVs from China? I can't find any. Now, what I can find is cheap European EVs all of a sudden. The Dacia Spring comes to mind. Now, the Dacia Spring, or Dacia, depending on where you come from in the world, it starts at 14k. $14,000. Show me the Chinese equivalent for $14,000. It's the same as all the Stellantis cars now. They're all dropped in price because batteries are getting cheaper. Show me the cheap Chinese EV. MG comes in at around 26 now, depending on your options. Now, I nipped in with the company called Stellantis because they own 51% of this thing here, Leap Motor. This is the T03 model. very small, same size as the old Smart 4-door, if you remember it. Does actually look like one, to be fair. Not too bad inside, bit basic for me, far too small for me, and with a battery pack of 37 kilowatt hour in total, it won't have the range for me, but hey, it might suit some. That is £16,000. Let's move on to Citroen. Fully electric vehicle should have a range, a real world range of around 160 to 165 miles in the summer, and that might be dropping to about 135, 140 in the winter. Don't forget, this will not come with a heat pump, and is actually made in Slovakia in Europe, not in China. The batteries are, but the car isn't. Righty, time for something a bit out there, to say the least, from Citroen. This is actually made in Morocco, and it can be driven by 14-year-olds in certain European countries. 16, I believe, in the UK, restricted to 28 mile an hour, and has about official 46 miles range. Price-wise, starts at £7,600. Would you buy one? Would you let your 16-year-old have one? Okay, this brings us down to one thing. And that's what I started at the beginning of this, saying, where are all the cheap Chinese cars? Well, it's basically down to one word, and that's tariffs. Now, they're very, very confusing all around the world, and there's been a big rush to put tariffs in, or there will be anyway very soon, in Europe, in the UK and in the USA. Now, they all are different. There's going to be different rates of tariffs, obviously. Now, Americans are taking it to the mega extreme of 100 and 200% tariffs, purely because I think the American auto industry is frightened to death of China-made cars. Now, let's put this into perspective. I'm not going to get too political on the Chinese side, but the Chinese government, okay, over the last 5 to 10 years have basically snowballed the auto industry into this massive, big, real thing that they want to rule the world with. And they gave lots and lots of, I wouldn't say grants, but actually money up front, billions of US dollars or Chinese yen, to the industry to set up these businesses for XPENG, for NIO and all the rest of them. Okay, as from today, as I'm making this vlog for you, there has been a massive change to EU import charges for cars and vehicles in general from China. Now, it's quite confusing, but if I said to you that there was always a 10% import duty, the same as there is in the UK. That is true. UK duty is 10%, but it's done on the vehicle price plus the shipping costs, not just the vehicle price. Then, of course, any paperwork costs, then VAT at 20% on top of everything. This is a big change for the EU. Now, the EU have come up with their regular 10%, and they're keeping that on, obviously. But they are shifting an extra 35% onto certain vehicles made by government-owned Chinese car manufacturers. This could make a whopping 45% tax, tariff, whatever you want to call it, on top of the price you pay for that Chinese car. This will make dealer prices go up accordingly, obviously. It will definitely increase the price of all China-made cars. The structure of the tariffs for the EU are very, very weird. If you're going to import a car or thinking of buying a Chinese car, just check on the tariffs because they do alter. But the maximum you'll pay now in the EU on top of the price you pay for the car in China is 45% tariff cost. Now, US tariffs, they were, I believe, 25%, 25%. You'd pay extra on the Chinese car. Well, that has been shot down by Mr. Biden quite a few months ago, actually. The tariffs now will be a 100%. Now, things have changed yet again. Biden on his way out, Trumpy-umpy on his way in.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening.
Will this affect tariffs? I believe so. I believe it wouldn't surprise me if it goes to 150% on imported Chinese cars. The downer to this is that it's called inflation. And I've said this before, any tariff adds to inflation. And also, the Chinese could always bounce back with tariffs for American goods, UK goods, European goods for definite. We'll wait and see on that one. So the only people really that get hurt by all this is not the governments. It's you and me who want to pick what vehicle we want to buy and use. And with those tariffs, it will knock certain Chinese cars on the head because they'll just be too pricey in the segment they're made for. Now, even the bottom lower ones, I've been quoting them on here, like the Spring and the other one that's owned by Stellantis, which I've mentioned on here, they're going to go up, obviously, with these new tariffs in Europe. In the UK, maybe not. Now, these pictures are the BYD Seagull. Now, I'm showing you this because there is another format of pricing which affects what we pay here in the UK, in America eventually, and in Europe for something as simple as this BYD Seagull. This sells in China, on the road, ready to go, for just over £8,000 sterling. Yes, as cheap as that. Now you can see where these cheap Chinese prices have come from. It's okay that it's selling for that in China, but don't forget they have to change things to match the safety needs of the UK and in Europe before it can be sold. So it's a heavier investment for BYD to make this car correct for our markets. That's what puts the extra prices on. It's not just tariffs, folks. It's more than that. If you want a safety 5-star or 4-star NCAP car, you have to pay the extra over what the Chinese pay to make it possible to be sold in Europe, in America and in the UK. Should be a good little car when it hits in 2025. The quality of it looks superb. If it's as good as the BYD Atto and the Seal, then yes, it will sell very well here in the UK because of its size. Prices for the base model should be around 16,500 to 17,000, and for the top of the range with the bigger battery, just under 20k on the road here in the UK. One hell of a little car, folks, for that price. So there's the real only good, cheap, quality Chinese car. Look out for it at BYD dealers in March/April 2025 here in the UK. I'm sure for all you lease people out there that prefer to lease or PCP rather than buy for cash, there'll be some good deals on this car, but not to begin with. Give it 6 months down the road and this will be as cheap as chips to get on a lease deal. So look out for that one. Now, I'm showing you this because BYD are quite successful in the USA. Now, not cars, obviously. They don't sell them, they don't make them. Buses, yes, they use their batteries on buses in the USA. This is the way of getting around the laws of tariffs. Make Chinese cars in your own country. Britain could do it. Europe could do it. The USA are doing it. And also, Geely do it in the USA. This is a very easy way out of getting around the import tariffs by creating, should I say, manufacturing the cars in the country where they're going to sell them. This means you are still owning a Chinese vehicle. It also means that the profits still go back to China. But for some reason, it seems the only way out is to build them in the country where you want to sell them. Clever marketing, but no more clever than Japan did back in the early mid-70s in the USA. Cheap Chinese EVs here in the UK and the USA and in Europe. Tariffs are going to completely ruin certain things for certain people, more so in Europe than here in the UK. But that BYD Seagull, that just goes to show the difference between the Chinese Seagull and what will happen to the European and the UK one when it gets here, because the changes will be quite phenomenal underneath, which you won't see, i.e. all the safety stuff. I've said it before, my Tesla is made in China. I've been very happy with that. Please subscribe if you're not before. We'll see you again in the next one. Might be 3 or 4 weeks away before I get the next post out there because I'm moving house. So I'll be super busy, but bear with me, folks. Please subscribe, like I say, and if you've not been here before, where you've been, catch you later.